Craig.
I'm Jay.
And this is the Jay and Craig podcast.
Home Alone, baby. This is our first time doing this, so you're going to have to bear with us. We're going to talk about movies and a bunch of other fun stuff, but primarily movies. And
without movies, what else is there? I met Mr. Catron at a unnamed Michigan film school some 16 years ago, and we hit it off at some divey little bar where Jay was complaining about the Star Wars Episode 1 trailer.
But yeah, I remember that. I was talking about the time they showed the Darth Maul lightsaber, double extended blade, in the trailer, and it just pissed me off.
So you don't show the double-sided lightsaber in the trailer.
And I think that's the first time Craig ever saw Angry Jay. And Angry Jay comes out when I see things that piss me off in movies. And quite frankly, isn't it all the time?
It happens quite often that things piss you and I off in films. And we're going to hear a lot about that. You're going to hear a lot of griping and complaining. And but you'll also hear a lot of things that when we find things we love, we definitely love and pontificate on them, and they become part of our lexicon. So.
And when we love movies, we really love movies. I mean, that's why you go to the movies. You want to be entertained. I don't want to just be entertained, though. I want something that's going to give me something.
I want to feel emotion. I want to get connected to the movie. I want to get caught up in the world. I really, when I go to a movie, I want to love that movie.
Exactly.
I want to walk out of there, want to see it again. I like the ups and downs and the hills and valleys the characters encounter. I love all of it.
And that's a big thing for me too, is when I go to see a movie, the night I see a movie, if I'm not thinking about it while I'm going to bed and don't think about it when I get up in the morning, it gives me reason to be concerned. Was that a really good movie if I'm not even thinking about it anymore?
Absolutely. And both of us can contest that if we've gone to see something twice in the cinema, it's definitely a good movie.
It's right.
It's not something that we're both going to do.
And, and for me, really, it's that second viewing which is critical.
Yes.
It's so critical because I kind of get caught up with everybody else in this whole being entertained. And you go to the movie theater and I want to enjoy it. I don't care what movie it is. I want to enjoy it really, really bad.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But then, as I sit on it and I go see it again, if it doesn't hold the same weight that second time, then that's where I know the problem is. Or if I never want to watch it on video, then I know there's a problem. Good movies should be enjoyed time and time again.
Absolutely. A good story is repeatable over and over and over. You shouldn't get sick of it.
That's like a good scotch. Should never get sick of a good scotch.
Absolutely. As we sit here with our famous grouse. Is that
famous grouse, yeah. I decided to go with some of the famous grouse today for our new podcast. In fact, I maybe should go with something different, but we're just going to drink what we got here. So yeah, we met 16 years ago. We were at a film school. Yep. We both partaked in the filmmaking aspect for a little while. And I think probably 10 years or so we were still considering making movies. And we were making a Western at one point. I'm sorry, you were making a Western. I was simply just getting high and watching and helping. But when it came down to it, I think we both found at our age and where we were in life that writing was the key for us.
Yes.
And that's what we love the most.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, you've got to go with your strengths.
Absolutely.
And writing is where it's at with us.
Because, when you look at a movie, if it's not written well, it's going to suck. You can't pretty up a piece of shit. It's a piece of shit.
Yes.
Right? But if you have a good story, it can be screwed up, but at least it's got good foundation.
It's really hard to make a good movie out of a bad script.
Exactly right. It can happen, and we've seen that happen too.
Absolutely it can. Or you can have, as they say, no script with a movie that we can touch on a little bit, Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, wait. Let's not get started there just yet.
Which was so far in George Miller's head that it's amazing what came up on screen. But that's a good example of the first viewing. I liked it, but I wasn't in love with it yet.
Oh, the Mad Max Fury Road?
Mad Max Fury Road. I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it, but I was kind of like, how much do I like it? But you were conflicted.
I was very conflicted, and I think it's because you and let's not get too much in this movie yet because we have other topics. But when you have a movie like that we've been waiting for forever by the original filmmaker that we can't wait for, with a new actor playing a character that we know very well as in Mad Max, I was so torn. It was because it felt different, it looked different, and it was so much
its own thing.
Exactly. So after the first viewing, I was like, I don't know, dude, I liked it, but maybe I had preconceived notions, which is the unfortunate part of expecting a movie and anticipation of it. And so, but 2 days later,
2 days later at the Epic.
We saw it again.
At the premiere screening here in Troy, Michigan.
Oh my goodness.
Where anyone who's in Troy, Michigan should see every film.
At the Epic Theater.
At the Epic Theater,
Absolutely.
MJR. Absolutely.
And what we're going to try to do with this podcast is touch on movies in a way that showing our appreciation of them, our critique of them, and just, like what we expected from them going in the first place. Because that's a big part.
And what makes a great movie great.
What makes a good movie great.
All great movies have a lot of common themes, common structures. I mean, we all know that lightning in a bottle has a lot to do with it. Mm-hmm. But, we're going to talk about movies and why we love them. And hopefully you'll enjoy our little chats on movies.
I think you're going to. So sit back, enjoy, and we're going to start our new topic today, and it's going to be about...
We're going to talk about Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Dawn of Justice, which is probably the worst title in the world when it came right out.
What do you think the V means?
Well, it's supposed to be versus, isn't it?
But why V?
I don't know. I've seen it before. There's V is used at times as opposed to VS.
Okay. Does it just look cool?
I think it just looks
cool. Better than VS.
Because you got Batman vs Superman, 2 S's in a row. Maybe it was an artistic choice just on the billboard.
It looks stronger.
V, Superman. Instead of VS Superman, which has another S right there. So let's talk about the lead up to this movie.
Yeah, and the fact that this is not a movie that I more or less felt obligated to see instead of wanting to see.
I need to give you guys some background on Craig. Craig, when this movie came out, he did not want this movie to... He just wanted to see it. He thought it was going to be garbage. He just did not think it was not worth it, but he didn't think it was going to be where it should be because he's a big Superman Batman fan, and he felt this movie was going to fall on its face.
And I was terrified to watch 2 of my favorite characters just get dismantled on screen and scar me cinematically.
And I mean, after you have the Dark Knight, the Nolan series,
yes,
and then you have Christopher Reeve as Superman, you have 2 iconic versions of those movies that people are looking at. Immediately, when you see Batman Superman as a movie, those 2 images, I think, predominantly come in people's heads.
It's that, you're absolutely right, and for me I did not think Man of Steel was a good movie.
Well, a lot of people did.
I did not think Man of Steel was a good movie. Like, its faults lied in conception to the screenplay to the execution of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And when they first announced Batman v Superman, it was David Goyer again and Zack Snyder again, and then they called in Ben Affleck, who I've notoriously been a big fan of.
Right.
Say Geely or Daredevil, whatever you want to say. And then they started shooting in Detroit, and he shot it forever.
That movie took forever.
And I was like, this thing's going to be garbage.
It was really a scary proposition because you're right, Man of Steel wasn't the greatest movie. I liked it. I liked the concept, but it fell flat in a lot of areas. Yeah, so then when you look at bringing... And the reason I brought up the Nolan series and Christopher Reeves because when I was on Facebook today, the almighty Facebook, and I noticed a couple people commenting about, well, nothing's going to be better than Heath Ledger's Joker. And I was like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? You're going into this movie already looking at it as it should be something else when it's not even the same fucking ballpark.
You can't bring your preconceived notions into a movie. Like, you have an artist, and I'm going to go so far left field down, I'm going to call Zack Snyder an artist. Because I really think he is.
Absolutely.
I think he is.
I agree.
And actors are artists, and this is their interpretation of this story. And it's its own thing. So I'm not going to go in and be like, he doesn't look like Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, or doesn't act like he doesn't. See, that's the thing, but people, I don't mean just look-wise, I mean... the idea of what Superman is.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think a lot of people felt Superman should be presented a certain way.
Yes.
But that was back in the 70s and 80s. Different time. And I think this interpretation of Superman kind of fits with the chaos of today.
This does far more than Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Because my personal interpretation of how he should be presented on screen, and I've told you this a few times, is kind of this... He should be this omnipresent kind of peripheral force.
Right.
I didn't think he should have been the main character in Man of Steel. I thought it should have been Lois Lane, and she should have experienced Superman from her point of view.
It's an interesting angle to take.
Because you can't... It's very hard to identify with someone who's a god.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't have consequence in his life. He doesn't have the same doubts and fears. He has his own different set of doubts and fears. Like, what's stopping you right now from jumping out that window?
I would die.
You'd get hurt.
Right.
Superman doesn't have those fears.
Right.
He's not worried about if his AT&T bill is going to get paid.
He's only worried about people finding out who he is.
Absolutely. He's worried about having his glasses on.
Yeah.
And if he's going to save the girl out of the burning building in Taiwan, or he's going to shoot down and save a drowning victim in Guatemala.
Right.
Those are his conflicts.
And and quite frankly, I mean, he's a tough character to represent in that way. But if you made that movie that you're talking about, it could have been, if it was well written and you had an amazing Lois Lane battling with this and seeing him from afar, can't you? I don't care how good the movie was. You know the backlash that movie would hit. Not having Superman in it.
Yes.
So he has to be focal because it's the catch-22.
Absolutely.
He's got to be there.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're screwed.
Yes.
So going into Batman Superman for myself, I am a DC guy first.
Yes.
I like the Marvel movies to a point. I like the big universe they're creating, the big world and universe they're making there, but I'm not a fan of how they tell their stories, as we know, right? A couple now, thankfully, the Russos are involved and they know what's really going on, and that's the only saving grace for me. So those movies coming out is not as exciting for me, except for Captain America's. So when Batman, Superman come on, I want to see the Justice League. I wanted to see George Miller's version of the Justice League.
Oh, I don't even want to go down that road.
Can you imagine what that movie would have been like?
George Miller's Justice League and the screenplay that they had.
Right.
And if anyone out there has not read the screenplay or looked at some of the production art from George Miller's Justice League, maybe now that Batman v Superman's out, don't go look at it.
Right.
Because there's this giant missed opportunity that just sometimes you want to cry into a pillow.
Craig came a long way to come and see this movie with me, which I was very grateful for because we see movies together and it becomes kind of like a holiday.
Even when it's not a holiday. It becomes like a vacation for me. This is my $500 movie ticket.
It's for the big movies, obviously. We're not getting together for, Pitch Perfect 2. But, we're doing it for the Mad Maxes.
Star Wars and Mad Max, and I'm going to see if we can repeat for Civil War.
Exactly right. Hopefully that'll work out. So, let's dive into Batman v Superman.
Absolutely. All right, Jace, let's get down to it. So what did you think of Batman v Superman?
I really liked it. I know it's not the popular opinion, but I really think this movie is getting a bad shake. It's a damn fun movie.
I've got to say, I went into this thing with the lowest of expectations. It felt like an obligation just to see it, and it was almost like I was like, okay, Warner Brothers, I'm just going to get this out of the way. I loved it. And it rode this thin line between it was about to step over into this gaudy mess at every turn, but he held it together. And about 10 or 15 minutes into it, I was like, I really like this movie.
Yeah.
And even though certain scenes, which we'll get into, threatened to drag me out of it, with my fingernails going across the chalkboard.
Right.
I was like, I love this movie. I like what he was trying to do. And I understand the backlash because by 15 minutes in, if you're not on board or get what Zack Snyder's trying to do, you'd hate it.
You're lost. You will hate it. At the end of the movie, Craig turned to me and said, I love this fucking movie. And I laughed because I was so surprised that he actually liked it because I was expecting... See, Craig will not like nearly as many movies as I do. I'm kind of a pushover sometimes where I like a movie. But it's because, like I said earlier, it's that first viewing. I'm a sucker for the movie.
Yeah, the experience.
It's that second viewing which will turn on me. So when I say I like a movie to Craig usually goes, okay, I'll see it again.
Well, check it out next week and see what you think about it.
And then sleep on it for a day, Jay, and see what you think. Because I sat through this movie thinking, I wonder what Craig's thinking of this because I'm really digging it. It was 2.5 hours long. I heard a lot of people were complaining about the length.
Right.
I did not want it to end.
No, I was ready for it to keep going.
I wanted to keep going, and I was like, oh man.
I was all comfortable.
Now we gotta keep waiting for another one.
I was wrapped into the world. I mean, he had me. It was the presentation was, I've got to say, if you haven't seen the movie, you really shouldn't be listening to our podcast.
Yes, this is a very big spoiler session. Yes. Thank you very much.
And I'm going to say, if you have not seen it, stop the podcast now and make sure you see it in the best presentation possible.
As possible.
The biggest screen, the best sound. The sound almost, I think, is more important than anything else in this thing.
Because it is a very visual... you'll touch on something later that I know you're going to talk about, but the way it's presented, it's not a music video, but it has such just visual... audio stimulation,
it's theatrics.
It just takes you on a ride. Like you said earlier, either in it or you're not.
Yeah.
And I can see why a lot of people are hating it. But you look back and you go like Rotten Tomatoes, it was getting a 30, right?
Yes.
What does Avengers 2 have? It was like 75. So why is there so much hate for the movie?
Well, I think because it's so... I'll have to give them this. I didn't expect something so original in concept.
Right.
I mean, it is wholly original in concept.
Right.
I mean, there's cliches in the story beats.
Always gotta be.
But what are you going to do? It's a superhero movie, and he's following two of the big DC comic storylines.
Biggest ones.
Dark Knight Returns and Death of Superman.
Right.
And again, if we told you to turn this off if you hadn't seen it, so
it's too late.
So it's like this. It's this big, audacious theatrical stage show. Like if you went, I could totally see them 5 years from now making this into a Broadway play, with them playing the cello and the orchestra section, and it's this big, huge. The lighting, the way the actors overplay a lot of everything, the way the music drives the whole time, like especially when I was really started getting on board. There's an almost wordless sequence. It goes on for at least 12 minutes. And it starts with Lex Luthor entering the World Engine.
Okay. And
it's got this dun-dun, dun-dun, and it's timed to his feet hitting the platform. And it was a nice touch where he used Zod's fingerprints to get inside.
Right.
Not that I think a Kryptonian probably has fingerprints, but, that's another topic altogether. And but that whole sequence going on there, and I was like, I am so into what this guy's doing. Like, this is just a big play.
He had a lot of fun with it, and that's the one thing that I liked, and I said earlier, was not my hate for, but my dislike of what Marvel's doing lately. This did exactly what I hoped it could do. It was so much different than the Marvel cookie cutter, kind of like
flat visual style.
And it just didn't have the same gusto. But then this movie comes out, and it was like, it's different. It's a different Batman. It's a different kind of Superman. And it's telling a story that we haven't seen yet.
And it was very adult.
Yeah.
It was very adult. And I say that as a compliment.
Yeah.
There was some brutal imagery in it. Some hard... the emotions at play are not anything that... If you're 8 years old, I can't really imagine you understanding why these two guys are doing what they're doing.
Not at all.
Because it's not... They do stop and talk, which I have to admit those are my least favorite parts of the movie. But... If you're 10 years... I can't imagine being 10 years old and understanding the dynamics of what's going on.
If my son, my 4-year-old, wanted to leave at parts at Star Wars, at Force Awakens, because, there's points where he's like, it's 2.5 hours, he's 4 years old, he wants to... I know he would have wanted to bolt in this movie, because it's just not for a kid.
It's scary.
Oh, yeah.
Even in the beginning, when they shoot the Waynes.
Yeah.
That's scary, with the pearls.
Yeah.
I was like...
It's heavily...
Whoa!
And that's it. You can see a lot of his, Watchmen,
fetishes.
And Watchmen has a lot of similarities to this movie in the way it's shot, and a lot of the imagery, and the pearl thing reminded me of stuff that was inside, the Watchmen, which was a great adaptation. It just kind of fell short in a couple ways.
It was very flat.
Yeah, I didn't
like
really
it.
have
And I
much to
love
it.
the Watchmen book. I read it when I was in high school.
But it's another great visual movie.
But it gets you into that world, the 80s and everything else.
Yeah,
and Zach has the thing about watching the shell casing from a gun escape.
He does, doesn't he?
He does that a lot.
Yeah.
And then when they shot the mortar in the desert, he watched that hit the ground too, and I was like, I've had enough of that.
Thankfully, what he did not do is have any slow-mo 300 shots.
Oh, God, yeah. I'm glad there's no speed ramping.
Right.
No speed ramping. I'm going to put that as my positive. No speed ramping.
So a big positive for me was being different than Marvel. And,
absolutely.
It had the right kind of Batman I wanted to see. Wonder Woman's inclusion was great. God, and the one thing that I was terrified that it was going to do was lead in and just be a commercial for the other DC movies. Now, you can say the meta-human file showing you the different superheroes that are going to be in the movies later. You can say that that's kind of an advertisement.
It was, and its placement, its placement in the movie was kind of odd.
It's a questionable placement, and it's not very exciting. And those are really 3 awkward.
And the
videos.
music undercurrent in that is very there's a lot of action. It's like action film music,
right?
And she's watching. She's like catching. She's like reading email. Like dun 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 dun.
Yeah,
dun.
wasn't it?
And that was one of those times.
It was Wonder Woman's music.
Yeah,
it was her theme.
And I was just one of those times when I was holding on, okay, just give it a moment. They're gonna end the scene and get to the fight.
All right, so what else we got here for positives for this movie? What else did you like about this? Because one thing that I liked a lot more was being different, but also being extremely polar opposite from the Batmans that we know.
Tina's in here trying to be all quiet.
Yeah, no, she's not being very quiet at all.
Hi, Tina.
I'm the Easter Bunny.
Yeah, the Easter Bunny's in here. You mentioned the big.
Well, it was original. Well, let's just start at the beginning. Okay. So it starts off with the Wayne's of Batman's parents' murder, which we've seen time and time again.
Thankfully, it wasn't very long.
No,
they did it quickly.
It was really, and again, it was quite brutal. Mm-hmm. I thought in the imagery, like the gun coming into focus and the kid watching everything, and
One thing that I saw in that sequence that I've never seen before, which again is making different things happen, was Thomas Wayne acting as an aggressor.
Yeah.
You notice that?
Yeah, his fist balling up and
but then
going for the guy.
And then he like went for the guy.
He went for him.
Right. I don't think
that was a different
I've seen
thing,
that.
and you're right, and that played into later on what Wayne said about his family.
Right.
These were not timid men.
Right.
They were
hunters. Right.
You know, and his dad was, and he saw that from his, you know, there's a reason they showed the fist ball up in front of his son's face is you know, his dad went down swinging.
Right.
You know, he wasn't just going to take it. And then the mother tried to get involved, and she, you know, wasn't like she was just going to stand there and be shell-shocked.
Right. And that's the credit to Snyder for being able to do things visually.
Yes.
And as writers, that's what you work on, is try to get that stuff out in the actual actions of the character, not the words.
Yeah, the only dialogue I think in the entire credit opening sequence is the voice. Is you hear Jeremy Irons going, "Master Wayne, Master Wayne," as he runs away and then he falls into the Batcave.
Right.
And then that whole thing with the bats swirling and lifting him up.
Mm-hmm.
So he's building up them into these godlike mythic figures.
Right.
And that's another thing I could totally see in a big stage show, the actor floating up and the bat effect going around up and the and the music swelling. And,
I'll say that was the first moment that you talk about that thin line.
Yes. That
was the very first moment where you have that thin line where you're like, ooh, either I like this or I don't. Like, I remember thinking to myself, is this working? What is this?
Right? I didn't like it.
Yeah, that first moment I was
intrigued by what they were doing. I was like, because the way he presented it visually, there was so much going on, and you could tell he was floating.
Right.
And I was like, there's a better way to show that. But then they showed it from the bottom.
Oh, that was the best
towards
part.
The light, and then it made more visual sense.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, all right, this is going to be different.
Right.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and that was the very first moment where you're like, ooh, you're either buying in,
yes,
or you're checking out.
There's probably a lot of Batman fans who are like, that's not the way it was put in the comic books.
Right.
I don't like it.
But again, I think they that preconceived notion of the comic books and what they've seen recently from Batman Begins.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago, and it was a
only
great
10 years ago that Begins came out.
Right. Yeah. You know, and it had that same kind of moment, but it was different because it made Bruce Wayne in Nolan's movies, anyways. It made him scared of bats.
Yes.
Bruce Wayne in this movie accepted them, welcomed them,
yes,
and that's why they floated him up. And it was like he was becoming the Bat. And
he did create that palpable sense of fear when he saw the entire cave full of bats.
Yeah.
But then they lifted him up.
Right.
So now you've created your own distinct, different Batman.
Exactly.
Right, you know you're getting something different.
Right from go.
Absolutely.
Visually.
Yes.
With literally more than only one word or two words, Master Wayne.
Exactly.
And that was it a couple times,
exactly.
you know, and or two words, as I say. I don't know my math. It started off questionable, and then you're like, this is different.
Then what was the next scene? I can't remember.
It probably has something to do with Lois Lane, don't you think, or Superman? Was it them? Was it Lex or?
Oh no, it was the World Engine scene. The Mankind is introduced to the Superman.
That's right.
Which I wish they would have repeated that motif.
And that's another thing that he doesn't ever fight. He doesn't follow through with a lot of things that he's showing you. Right?
You ever notice that that's a cool idea.
It's just that right there.
It's only an idea.
Yeah, it's an idea once. That shit, I was expecting. I was like, oh, okay, so we're going to see this like chapters, like a Tarantino movie.
Exactly.
Chapter 1.
And he could have done that.
Right.
He totally could have.
And that would have been kind of cool because you
absolutely.
are going off of two really good comic books.
Yes, absolutely.
Why not make it like a graphic novel, like a comic book?
And then that was a good scene.
Yep.
And and again, it was very overwrought. He finds the guy with his legs pinned. I can't feel my legs.
Okay, so the whole Bruce Wayne rushing through the cities of Detroit. I'm sorry, Gotham City, or I'm sorry, Metropolis.
Rushing down.
Oh, hey, how did you know that Gotham City and Metropolis were like separated by a bay?
Yeah, like they're across the road.
I didn't know that. I thought they were like it was like Detroit versus New York.
Across the harbor.
I thought it was like Detroit versus New
York.
Well,
the comic books are not close together, but for convenience sake.
For convenience sake. So when what were we just talking about? I just got sidetracked.
Racing down the streets.
Racing down the street. It was okay. I get it. He wants to go save somebody, but then it got really melodramatic.
Oh, wait a second. Was he calling the guy on the phone Papa?
Yeah, it was also confusing.
Yes.
So there was a guy in his business
like his stepdad or something, or what?
I'm imagining as someone that took over the business for him and helped him guide himself through the troubled times.
He was calling him Papa, right?
Yeah,
or something like that.
Probably like his. I wouldn't say surrogate dad because that would have been. Well, in this movie, obviously, Alfred's not the dad that Michael Caine
yeah, Alfred's like some dude he picked up out of the SS. Yeah, Alfred's like some badass dude he enlisted to build all his weapons.
He doesn't have the emotional impact to his character like Michael Caine did, where he was like a father figure.
No, this is the Alfred who's like, you need to go back in there and do 10 more chin-ups.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what this guy is.
Right.
Yeah.
You think you're done? Yeah, get back in there, motherfucker.
Like, I don't see any sweat dripping on the floor.
Right.
Get to work.
Right. So there's two. Yeah, but again, another difference in presentation of character.
You didn't. Why try to repeat what came before? You're gonna fall. You're gonna fail.
Especially something like Michael Caine has. That was like that's a.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than that. I mean, he was great.
Like this is the Alfred I can see going in the battle alongside. Like if things are going wrong for Superman, I can see him coming in there and whooping some ass, to get Batman out of trouble.
Yeah, because he's done that before in comic books, where he's come in and done things like that, right? And I'm not the hugest comic book guy. I know my comic books to a point, mostly because of my my buddies. They know their comic books far more than I do. And they'll give me little, they'll give me tips, or I'll Wikipedia. There's always ways to find out about this shit.
Absolutely, we can go look it up right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be curious to see how they describe the story on Wikipedia, Batman vs Superman. Oh. You know how they always outline the plot?
Right.
Like, I'm curious to see how they actually pull that off in there, because there isn't really much of a story.
There's a story, right? But it's there's too many things going on, too many stories in one.
Well, that's why I can't really recall what the progression of scenes was, because it was all it just jumped all over the place. But it was building up emotional momentum.
Right, and I want to talk about that after we get to the cons here, is that just disjointedness. Because that's a big factor I want to talk about. That's one of the negatives of the movie. Oh, yeah. Other than that, we'll go with let's stay positive first.
Yeah, let's talk about what we liked about it
because
first.
Too many people are talking about negative, man.
Yeah, I'm not going to rag on it. I just tried watching something on the internet today, like a video review.
Right.
And the dude was just pulling every word out of the thesaurus to try to bring the movie down. It's like, you can't... I
don't get it.
Like, you can't... Like, I can imagine disliking it.
Yo, sure. But, I mean, hey, it's your preference, right?
But to hate it that badly,
I don't see the hate for it when something like Avengers 2 is not a good movie, but yet it gets. So now I'm gonna turn into Angry Jay because I don't like to talk about. I want to talk about Avengers 2.
Let's talk about Avengers. Let's talk about. They're kind of the same animal. Let's talk about Avengers 2. Something that I didn't like the first time I saw it.
Right.
And you talked me into seeing it again
because I thought maybe the second time with me you might enjoy it. Silly me.
Oh, God, about 10 minutes in, I was like, God sakes, Jason. You'll walk out of this thing right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude, because this is my third time.
And we saw it after we saw Mad Max.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got this CGI crap fest going on in front of me with fake-looking Hulk and fake-looking this and fake-looking that. And,
but with ideas that start off that never materialize.
Well, there's no narrative thrust. Now, this is interesting. Batman vs. Superman gets by without a true narrative drive.
True
it's
enough.
Carried along by pure emotional momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Ultron, about 20 minutes in, I was like, what the hell is going on in this movie?
Right.
I couldn't tell you.
And anything that they did try to encapsulate as the story was forgotten later on.
Yeah, right.
And then they went into and then nothing was like, there was no payoff. There was no payoff to anything.
Payoff or consequence.
Man.
No consequence.
Consequence. Batman versus Superman. A lot of...
It's all about consequence.
It's all about consequence.
It's all fallout from Man of Steel, and it's a consequence of the life that Bruce Wayne has led up to this point, and how he's basically having like a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
He's like, what have I been doing? Like, have I done any good?
Well, and that's what the trailers really hit that on the head.
Yeah.
I think actually more so than actually is on the movie on the screen, right?
I think it's actually a good thing I saw the trailers,
right?
Because I knew what was going on in the movie.
And I also think it's good that I saw a lot of negative stuff about this movie. I wasn't going in, obviously knowing it's Snyder. I wasn't going in with like this pure like, oh my god, I can't wait.
It's kind of like going into a Michael Bay movie.
Right.
You know you're gonna get something cool, but it's not be that good.
It's probably gonna suck. But thankfully we saw some negative. It got my expectations down in check.
Oh yeah.
So when we actually watched, I was like, this is not as bad as this motherfuckers are saying.
Well, even on the way to the theater, I stopped at the chiropractor.
Yep.
And the guy on the thing next to me was like, it was terrible. And then he said, one of my clients came in earlier and said it was just pure trash.
So when I was waiting in line with Paul, waiting for you from the chiropractor, the theater let out.
Right.
And nothing but solemn faces.
The kids coming out of the theater, when I was walking up, they looked flat out upset.
Right. Now
I know why.
Right, because of the ending. But at the same time, I walked out even with that ending, and I was just like, holy cow, let's go talk about it.
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody
walking
out of that movie theater like that.
I loved it. I don't know what, and I am not, I got to tell you guys, I am a harsh critic.
He is.
I don't
really hard.
like a lot of movies, and for me to get, if I watch a movie, I'm on airplanes a lot. I travel a lot for work, and I catch up on a lot of movies on the aircraft. A lot of times, if I'm not engaged 12 minutes in, I just turn the damn things off.
Craig has walked out of more movies than I have probably ever disliked.
I've got no qualms walking out of the theater.
He doesn't. I pay my money for a ticket. I'm going to stick my ass through it unless it's the last 10 minutes, then I'm out, right? I'm done.
Man, I'll give you 20 minutes.
I haven't walked out of many theaters. Literally. I've walked out maybe, I'm going to say five movies that I've walked out on. And... it is what it is, and I should have walked out on many more. But I'll just finish it off, another half hour or whatever, and finish it off. But
I'm just kind of like I got better things to do.
Right. Okay. So Craig is a harsh motherfucking critic. I'm a harsh critic in a lot of ways. Craig is, and then some. And you have some of my friends who like everything. So I'm like the buffer where I'm like, well, yeah, I kind of like it, but no, I don't anymore. Not anymore. No, I actually hate it.
No, I can't tell Craig that I liked it.
I know if I do.
Great. Jay, what'd you think?
I liked it, I think. But let me go see it again, because that's the thing. I'm so jaded by that first viewing experience that I get overwhelmed by just like, I walked out of... Okay, truth be told.
Okay.
I walked out of Avengers 2. I think you remember the voicemail I left.
Yeah, because you left me
I really thought I enjoyed it. Because I did enjoy it at the time.
Yeah, right.
For that first viewing.
Sure.
I thought it was entertaining. The action was fun. I was like, that was a lot of fun. And then... After I talked to Craig about it briefly, I went to bed. I didn't think about it at all. I woke up, and I was like, oh yeah, I saw Avengers last night. I didn't think about any scene or any emotional moment where it really got me. Nothing hit me. Then seeing it again was proof in the pudding.
So you saw it twice before you saw it with me.
I can't recall.
That's just how forgettable it is.
Yeah.
It's not a good movie.
I think I tried to hold off that second time because I thought it was good, and I was waiting for you to see it. Because I don't think I saw that 3 times. I don't think I could put myself through that 3 times.
Because it wasn't. Because it came out May 5th,
I saw it twice.
and then
I saw it twice.
Yeah,
I wouldn't waste my time.
I can encapsulate why I dislike Age of Ultron in one by pinpointing one sequence. When they're what's the name of the city? Sokovia?
I think so.
Okay, Sokovia is lifting up into the sky. They're trying to get the people off. It's life or death situation, or it's supposed to be.
Right.
And then they cut away to... They're trying to build this palpable sense... They're trying to build a sense of dread and danger and stakes.
Right.
Right? Then they cut away to... All of a sudden, Widow and Hawkeye have acquired an Audi convertible.
Oh, yeah.
And they're talking about how to decorate his kitchen. I'm like, well, if the characters can't take this situation seriously, how can I, as the viewer, take this situation seriously?
I know no one's going to die.
Yeah.
Marvel, but I'm sorry, let's kill the only character who you don't care about.
You've just told me, you're telling me that this is not, don't take it this seriously.
Right.
Like, it's all a big joke. It's all big,
And that's the Marvel thing, except for when the Russos got involved.
Oh, man, they're filmmakers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
It's all right.
Let's go back.
That's what these things are for.
Let's go back. Let's get back into Bat, because we can talk about Avengers 2
This is our first podcast
for a while.
Folks. We don't know the rules yet.
Yeah, we don't really have any.
We're going to break them, so it's all right.
We're going to just make the rules up as we go along here.
Okay, so anyway, so Age of Ultron 0, Batman v Superman 1.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So what else about Batman and Superman did you like?
God, all right, let me go. I'm going to, in fact, folks, I got a list. Because I have a tendency to forget about things.
And a lot of mine are kind of the same thing. Wait, I was like... Different than Marvel. Went for the extreme polarization. Characters are different. That's all the same fucking thing, Jay.
That's all right. So I really bought into, and I asked Tina before we started. And Tina's Jason's gorgeous, amazing wife.
Thank you.
And if she bought the Superman Lois Lane romance, because I did, in the sense that I liked that they made, and again, Superman. The way he's used in this movie, he's a character, but he's not. I don't consider him like a main character.
It was Batman's movie.
It was Batman's movie, and I think that was a good choice.
Yeah.
And it kind of used him as this kind of peripheral force, which was good. Mm-hmm. And I liked the fact that he felt out of touch with humanity. Mm-hmm. He wanted to be a part of humanity, but knew that he really wasn't. He wanted to be accepted, and he was, and he wasn't. He was accepted in the extreme, and then he was accepted in the extreme, and he was rebuffed in the extreme.
Right.
And Lois was his gateway into humanity. It was this woman who accepted him for who he was, mm-hmm. and unconditionally. All his faults and all the things he could do, and he loved her.
Oh, yeah.
He loved her. I mean, every time that she was in peril, he just showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah. When she was drowning, that one moment where he finally hears her and he's like, "Oh shit!"
Like I could imagine a lot of people are like, "Oh, that was cheesy." I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked it.
There's a connection. You have to have those moments.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you don't have those moments, why do you care about this character at all? If you can't care about what he cares about or why he cares about it, if you don't believe in what he's doing, then he doesn't matter to you.
And how much she cared about him. Like every time he was going to the Senate hearing or doing something, like you could see she was like genuinely concerned for him.
Even though he's the Man of Steel.
Absolutely.
Because everyone's got vulnerability.
I mean, they were in love, and I bought it.
Isn't that kind of like the theme is everyone has vulnerability?
Yes, that's a major... There's so many themes and ideas in the film. Yeah. I'm not going to say that they're all successful.
No,
but that was one of them. That vulnerability was a big one. Your own mortality.
Because every one of them, except for Wonder Woman,
had
a vulnerability.
Yeah, if you get in touch with your own vulnerability and you recognize your own mortality. That's where Wayne was.
Right.
He was starting to recognize his mortality, like, I can't keep doing this.
Right.
And what have I really done? But if I can kill this alien before he kills us, my life will have meant something.
Right. And this is what I was here for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though I kind of caused this.
Like, everything I've done up to this point is going to pay off in me going to war.
And you know what? As a character, it kind of sucks for him because everything that has happened is because of him.
And he's still not happy.
Well, but I mean, so like he pressed the little thing in the ship because he felt like he had to, and that sent off a beacon for Zod to find him.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about Superman.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry. So you have like he started everything on accident in a way, and it's all because of him. So when he ends up biting it, he makes that sacrifice. It's because man, I've caused a lot of shit.
Yeah.
This is all because of me.
Yeah.
That shows something about a character, and that's what you need to have, which you don't get from the other movies that we're talking about. The other brand is because they don't. I think maybe they do a little bit, especially Captain America and Russo's, but they really don't take responsibility and the consequences of those responsibilities. And he lived up to it. And he said, "You know what?
It was really weighing on
do
him.
it. Yeah."
Like I know that the scene
Wayne on him.
Wayne wah, wah, wah. He could, and I liked, even though the scene's awkward. I think the scene went too far, like a lot of things did. There's a lot of times he could have gotten out of scenes earlier, but we'll
times.
We'll get into that later.
That's later.
We'll get into that later. But the scene where they're at home in the apartment, and she's stressed out in the bathtub.
Oh, like their first scene together.
Their first scene together, and you could see that he was kind of like one of those guys who meets the real pretty girl, and instead of being himself, he's going to try to conform himself to something that she might like.
Right.
He's trying to play Mr. Average Guy. Now, look, I went and got groceries, and I just pulled an ocean liner out of the sea.
Yeah.
But now I got groceries, and I'm gonna go make broccoli. Like he's really trying.
Yeah, he's really
trying.
Yeah. And I will tell you that scene was another one of those moments where I was like, oh, okay, so they're already 18 months later after the events of Metropolis and the Earth Maker, whatever it was.
Yep.
They're already together.
Oh, 18 months.
They're
practically married.
Every other Superman, really there's only been one.
Oh, yeah.
But every other story of Superman has him trying to hide who he is and still have a relationship.
I'm glad they got past that.
They just jump right to it because if you look at it and if you critique that moment, I understand that. You have to look at why they did it.
Yes.
There's way too much ground to cover for them to throw that in there as well. They've got to be on board with this, and that emotional content has to be there without us seeing it because, quite frankly, we don't need to see it.
No, we don't.
But I was kind of off on that scene at first.
Look at the end when he shoves her off the building, which shocked me.
Right.
I was like, whoa! And then that great shot of him grabbing her out of the air.
Right.
And
Lex almost immediately.
And Lex knew that would happen.
Right.
And if you wouldn't need to call Superman, just put Lois Lane in danger.
Exactly right.
And that was great. And he was genuine. And I've got to say, Cavill in the scenes with he was better in the scenes with Lois Lane than in scenes where he was just asked to be stoic. Because you could see he was like, when he put her down, he's like, "Are you okay?" And just with his face.
Right.
Like he was genuinely concerned
about... It showed
about...
the human
of him. Absolutely. He was so connected to her.
Right.
And so that, like, I bought all that.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't, and another thing, it's a rough 2.5 hours.
It is. And so there's two moments in the beginning of that movie, the first, 15 minutes, where you have the Batman with the bats, or the Bruce Wayne with the bats, and then you have that moment, the first two intros of those two characters, and you have got to be already on board.
Yeah, right.
Because if you think those are off, which I thought the Wonder Woman thing, or not sorry, Wonder Woman, but the intro of Clark and Lois together already in the bathtub thing, I I was like, that's weird. But then again, I thought about at the end of it, it didn't bother me because they had to fit.
It had an arc.
Way.
It had
to go
fit
there
in with the arc.
Can you imagine them trying to fall in love during this whole thing?
Oh my God, the thing would have been 4 hours long.
I mean, Jesus Christ. So I'm glad they did what they did.
But on the flip side of that, the sequence where Clark's hanging out in his sweatpants in the kitchen, cooking breakfast and watching the news, I was like,
I just heard the teenage and smiled.
It was like a 15-second shot of him watching the Batman stuff on TV.
See, they put that in there for Tina, my wife. That's in there for that because she loves her some Superman.
You didn't really get a good look at him.
Other than that.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the only shot you got of him like in his skivvies.
Oh, we just jumped over. Okay, well, I've got to say the introduction of Batman in the movie is good.
Oh,
the introduction of Batman is excellent.
That is cool because you see him first.
It's like a horror film.
Hiding in the corner like that. That was badass.
Yeah, that was cool.
I was a big fan of that. And he comes out, and the way he moved was almost inhuman.
Yes, the way he kind of scaled the wall.
Right.
Up in the. I wasn't a big fan of the actor who played the cop, but he was like some dweebish kid. But when that rack focus and you see him up in the corner like that, I was like, oh, that's cool. And the Batarang was stuck in the door. Yeah. It was like they followed up on a Jason Voorhees crime scene.
Exactly.
It was awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a cool. You got Batman's already. That's what I didn't want to see, like how he became Batman, because show him with like the fear that everyone has of him. He's such a mystery, and he's like a ninja, man. He's showing up and branding people. I mean, that's another new one for him. Branding people, that's and pretty dark, man.
Yeah, and Alfred made a comment like, getting a little rough out there, aren't you? Come on now.
Because, I mean, at that age, he's going through that moment where he's got like, I gotta just like start picking it up again.
Well, it's like they said in one of the Batman Begins movies, it's all about escalation.
Right.
You can only beat people up for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can only beat people up for so long. Pretty soon you start branding them. His next step was just start flat out murdering dudes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When we see some of his dream sequences, that's what he ends up doing. If that's a future.
Yes.
If that's a future to be told.
Yeah, man.
So we have what else we got to talk about here?
God, good points.
We don't want to talk about the very ending yet. Let's work our way up there.
Well, we're gonna start talking about bad stuff to get to the end.
Well, we can talk about bad stuff, or we can talk about his death.
Let's just jump to this. Okay, let's keep on the stuff that we like.
Yeah.
We're staying positive, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're staying positive.
Go see it because it's fun first, then you can critique it later.
Okay, when they fought, I liked the fight. And they built up to the fight in a logical way,
right,
in an emotional way. And then that was one of my biggest fears going into it, is how they'd handle it, because I knew Batman was going to win the fight.
That's why one of the biggest complaint you have since this movie was like, coming out was... There's no fucking way he can fight Superman. Superman could just blow him over. You had this idea that he just was unstoppable.
There's no reason for Superman to engage him face to face when he can just blow the building down, or he should have just, if he really wanted to talk to him, you swoop down, you grab the back of his armor, you fly him up into the stratosphere until Bruce can't breathe. Like, okay, we're going to talk about this like men. And then take him back down and lay him down and be like, all right, well, let's figure this thing out.
Let's talk like men.
But by the time I'd gotten to that point in the movie, I was on board with what they were doing. Right. And I was like, okay, I'm cool with it. And he's like, he wanted to talk to Bruce. And then
because
he shot him with the shock waves.
It wasn't about Superman fighting him, it was about Bruce Wayne wanting to fight Superman.
Exactly.
And that's why he didn't want to fight him. He's like, I want to talk to you. Because he knows he's got to save somebody already.
Absolutely.
And so he's trying to
it's a means to an end.
Right. But then you just touched on the shock waves, which was like, okay, cool, he's setting up traps. He wants to take a little out of him, see what he can do to him. No, he knows it can't, defeat him.
He knows he can't. Yeah.
But he's like doing everything he can to slow him down.
Right.
Right. And then he had the machine guns, which
then
is
he had the machine guns, and that's when he pissed him off.
Right. And
that's when he pushed him.
Right. That was cool. But I love I love Bruce Wayne's smirk, Batman's smirk after I think it was a sound wave when he finally got him to his knees.
Well, he was like, he kind of had this like, okay, this guy's not that bright.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I can beat this guy.
I can beat this guy.
That's what I love about Batman. Is he's so fucking smart.
Yeah.
He can beat anybody because he's already thought about everything.
Well, it was the sense that the way they built up the fight was you've got one guy who's planning it out as a strategical battle. And Superman only approached it from that moment.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I mean, from what I can understand, Batman was planning this thing for like a month.
Right.
Right.
Oh yeah, he's working on it.
And then Batman just went over there to talk to him, so he walked into a trap.
Right.
He had no intention of fighting, nothing like that. So
Right.
my whole idea of just blast him off the roof doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And I like how they got to that
Right.
point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, you have it was a good fight, and I loved seeing Batman like get the upper hand on him. It was cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
The way he did it with the gas grenade and all that.
Yep,
And then I think one of your favorite moments as well as mine was he was punching
hitting
him in the head. And he kept punching him in the head, and then the gas wore off.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, you can see his head coming back into form, and it's not getting moved anymore.
And now it's ding, clank, clank, and then he looks at his hand, and it's all mangled. And I just love that beat where Bruce Wayne looks at him, and he puts up his hand like,
Wait.
Hold on a minute, big guy.
Wait.
Like, this thing's going a little bit too far.
But it was also in his eyes. Or his
Yeah,
mouth.
oh,
You
yeah.
couldn't see his eyes, obviously, but it was in his mouth.
He was like, oh.
It was a great moment.
I just got this girl angry.
Yeah, exactly. I really liked the fight, and then it didn't go on too long.
No,
it wasn't the General Zod fight.
It was quick.
You know, Superman General Zod went on forever.
Yep.
This was quick to the point, and then like he's about to kill him.
Yeah, and I've got to say, from the point of the fight to the end of the movie, that thing just moves like a
that point on. Except,
ship.
I want to talk about that for a second, and then just to bring it up, then we'll move on to the last positive part about it. But the whole mama scene on how they became friends, or not friends, but how they agreed to work.
You mean the wolf scene?
Yeah.
You like wolves? I like wolves too. Let's be best friends. That's kind of what it reminded me of.
That one
just
threw me.
I had this image after we saw it of, I could see Ben Affleck on set standing there with that spear going, "Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name?" And then cut, and Zach's like, "Let's do it again. This time yell it 4 times." And then Ben Affleck being like, "Oh, what have I gotten myself into?" He's wearing this big styrofoam Batman costume.
Day.
Oh yeah, it's the first day. He just got to Detroit last night.
Oh shit! Yeah, that.
You can see, like, I just won an Oscar last year.
It was an awkward moment.
It was.
It was an awkward moment, and they became. You know, something was either missing there, or they had no way to figure it out, and they just went with that. You know, so who knows why that ended up going that way? But it was so shaky.
Well,
but then all of a sudden, it's like, I'm going to go save Martha, and you're going to do this. He's like, no, I'm going to do it. I was like, oh
it
shit.
Got good.
They're teammates.
They just jumped ahead. I was cool with it. And he's like, Martha's not going to die tonight. My mother's not going to die tonight. There's a lot of subtext in there that they didn't touch on, but it's there.
It's there.
It's totally
there.
You
don't need to beat her over the head.
Exactly.
It's there.
And that was, like, I love when they just key in on things and move on, and you just got to catch up or get outside.
Either you catch it the first time or maybe the second time, but it's there. It's subtle, but it's there.
Yes.
So they become teammates all of a sudden. He goes
he goes to Lex and
suddenly
he goes
changes
to
his costume, gets out of his metal thing, and he's always
well, I guess he took it off, and then he had his bat costume on underneath, or
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why I've got a little problem with the bat armor, because to me it looks like armor, and there's no way he's moving around in that thing.
Right.
But
it's like Iron Man armor, right? I mean, he's walking around in that thing.
Well, it's electronic. It's got hydraulics in it.
So it's got to be more. He was doing work with it. I think it's more than his armor. I think
I
it
would
is
hope
like,
so.
yeah, I think it's more that it has more going on. It's Bruce Wayne. He's the Tony Stark of.
He's of the DC universe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is why. Yeah.
And then you're in another one of those absolutely painfully awkward shots of him in some kind of cockpit. I don't know if it was because the costume was so big and bulky.
He was so big,
but he was
also so big. Yeah, he looked like just like a big muscle head. He was just like, I can't move my head.
You could see him getting into that on the first day, like, can you fit?
Right.
Are you good?
And I thought we were gonna get cheated out of the scene we saw in the trailer, with him going through the second floor and coming up through the third to the villains. I thought that would be early on.
When I realized that was part of the third act, I was like, God. But then they'd shown a scene in the trailers of Martha Kent with the warehouse glass behind her.
Oh, I never saw that one.
About midway through the movie, I put it all together. I was like,
okay.
this is part of the climax. And,
I never caught that. Okay.
So, again, the trailers, thank you very much, Warner, for spoiling things for me.
Trailers, man. The worst things in the world.
Because you can start putting 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
All right, before we get... okay, so let's finish this up first.
Yeah, we still got one more little piece of the puzzle here that is...
yeah, and then... jumping into Doomsday... The relief. Okay, I had a problem with Superman just standing there, just listening to Lex as he finished his plan.
I'm like, why don't you just blow it up right now?
Like, just tear the tendrils out of the thing.
Right.
Like, destroy it.
Right.
Just folds his arms like, what are you doing?
I'm gonna wait till those finishes. I'm waiting for it to upload.
He's like cackling.
I'm waiting for my pod list. I'm waiting for my list to upload.
Yeah. Let's see what this dumb little.
Let's see what happens.
Even though this guy still has my mother hostage.
Zach told me to wait for a few seconds.
Let me just stand here with my arms crossed and act stoic. What could he possibly?
A lot of questions on that whole Doomsday thing, but him coming out and knocking the hell out of Bruce Wayne's shit.
Scary and shit. He came out, and then I like that he would have killed Lex Luthor, but Superman stopped him.
Right.
He tried to punch Lex Luthor into 2017.
Yeah.
He stopped him, which was a great shot.
Right.
And then now I got to tell you folks, the last 30 minutes are filled with shots you could just take out and frame on the wall.
100%.
Beautifully rendered shots and composed shots, and
I've heard complaints that it was so lame, dry and bland as how it was filmed. I don't get that.
I've seen that too. Like, there's not a lot of dynamic choreography going on, but it just looks amazing.
Right, but they also, in that same breath, they said, I've read people say that there was no sign of teamwork. Like there wasn't a Marvel. I don't agree with that because of a couple moments where you see that. At the same time, this is their first time together, man. They don't know what each other's going to do.
They don't know what's going on.
They don't know what they're going to do yet. Mm-hmm. At least the Avenger guys have been with each other for a little bit longer than 5 seconds.
Yeah, it wasn't like they were like, "Oh, you're here now. Okay, well, you do this." You do
this, like there was no they showed no strategy. I'm like, they're in the middle of a firefight.
Well, how do you form a strategy?
I'm going to go over here, and you go over here. No, you don't do that. They did it at the beginning of the Avenger movie,
right?
I'm sorry, during the climax of the Avenger movie, where he's like, "Cap, what's the game, Cap?" And Cap calls out their positions.
Yeah,
and that was it.
It was totally realistic to be an over, like, okay, we're faced with this giant, unstoppable android thing that's firing laser beams everywhere. You've got to act. You just have to act.
And I thought, the cool teamwork was Wonder Woman would do something to Doomsday, and Superman would notice it, and he would act on it.
Yes.
And he wouldn't be waiting for it, but he'd be like, oh, she threw him up in the air. And he would take off and go hit him back down.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of those moments.
I did get a little visually confused as to who was getting thrown where a couple times.
Oh, sure. It's a dark environment. It's a black and red and yellow environment.
Right.
With flames and darkness everywhere.
It's a big electric laser light show at the end of the concert.
But isn't that with every movie these days when it comes to the heavy action? It's like, whether if it's Transformers, except for Marvel because they keep it bright.
Yeah, Marvel keeps it pretty well choreographed.
But you got the Transformer movies or anything that's like big. You want to see that stuff, but yet they show it in such like glimpses and fast, like with little flashes or with like slow. It's like they don't get or close-ups. You can't see shit. I want to see what's going on.
Yeah, I only had a problem with it a couple times because most of the time I could see what was going on. Like there's this absolutely beautifully rendered shot of when Doomsday fires off with his laser beam, whatever the hell he's got going on there, electric storm.
Yeah.
And Batman crawls behind the concrete.
That was the first
Batman's totally out of his element.
Yeah.
Batman's scared out of his mind.
I loved how you have these two godlike warrior, well, not a warrior and a god, fighting this thing, getting ready to fight this thing.
Yeah, right.
And Batman is so out of his element.
Batman's got his gun. He's like, this is useless.
He has no idea what he can do. For almost that entire sequence, he's like dodging.
He's basically running scared.
He's getting the fuck out of the way until he got the opportunity to drop the bomb with the gas gun.
He knew what he had to do.
Yeah, he was trying to stay alive.
Oh yeah, he was like, I'm screwed.
The other ones are fighting.
But when he crawls with the concrete and there's just this shower of sparks and you see like diffused in the background Wonder Woman with her shield held up and the sparks are flying around her and I was like, God, that's beautiful. Yeah. And the introduction of Wonder Woman. Good God! I wanted to stand up and clap.
It was fantastic. I remember screaming out, "Yeah!"
Yeah, I was like, I almost started clapping and realized I was alone.
Yeah. I was like, I would join you, trust me, because that was a fun moment, especially because of what Bruce Wayne or Batman says. You never see Batman swear.
Yeah, right.
I think maybe Michael Keaton did once.
Maybe,
but you don't see it.
But in context.
Yeah. Oh shit.
And then she, the focus comes in and it's her bracelets, not the shield.
Right.
It's her bracelets and you see her eyes and that great music.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. Like, that's awesome.
It was very cool. So her intro was good. The teamwork was kind of cool for what it was because, again, they've never worked with each other.
They got it working,
So they did great with what they had.
Absolutely. Right? I would have liked to seen her use the lasso instead of it being already, like when they came back to it, she'd already had him lassoed up with the lasso.
And I like that you didn't have to see it.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. Why do you have to show? You can't see every moment that's happening in a battle like that. If you're focused on this, what's happening here, something's going on here. I like that we come back
because he was talking to Lois for a while,
right? And then you come back and she's been acting shit, and she's already got him by the wrap. I think that's even cool to see it like
staying
that,
alive and fighting, and I can get down with that. Because he was talking to Lois for a while,
right? It was. I'm like, you can get back to the fight. Are you get back to the fight?
Are they dead?
Are you get back to the fight?
Yeah, come on now. You can't watch from a distance the whole time now, Superman. Like you're the key player in this.
Another thing I liked is that Superman kept getting his ass beat, and Wonder Woman kept whooping some shit.
Wonder Woman is the warrior.
Yeah.
See, Superman's getting by on pure brute force,
right?
But Wonder Woman is a skilled gladiator,
right?
She's the warrior.
Yeah.
He's and punching stuff. Yeah,
not just a warrior,
with the same amount of
kind of power. Except she can't fly. I don't think in this particular.
But she can jump pretty goddamn far.
Yeah, she can. Yeah. And one thing I want to see more, and I think I saw it must have been a clip from her new movie, but I saw a clip of her like doing some work on some soldiers.
Yeah, like beating the crap out of them.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, she's got some cool the way her body's moving.
She likes combat.
Yeah.
Like when Doomsday had knocked her back and she was like, all right, okay, motherfucker, I got you.
I wanted to applaud that one because she was like, it's like the warrior who can't ever find the proper fight.
Yes, exactly.
What
she say in the beginning? I fought beasts like this in other world before. She wasn't really worried about it.
No, she's like, I've done this before.
She was like, yeah, I'm just gonna let's lay down some smoke, guys.
Right. I've done this before.
Batman had his gun and he was like, I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do?
She with you? Shit, man, I thought she was you. I didn't want to be like that.
I love it. I thought she was with you. It seemed kind of obvious. Yeah, that was great. I wish it would have had a little more levity.
Right.
I mean, I think that was the first joke in the movie.
Yeah, there were a couple other
things like Perry White's Superman goes to the skies or whatever. Nobody reads newspapers anymore.
I thought that was a great turn because see Perry White and you got J. Jonah Jameson, so they're two kind of the same kind of characters.
Kind of the same, yeah.
And you have Hothead one and who was Perry White in the Returns movie? Superman Returns.
The guy from House.
Was it? Really?
No, it was Frank Langella.
Okay, and very forgettable.
Yeah, very. He was just.
I know he tried to be a little. He was trying to be a little lampoony a little bit.
Yeah, but it didn't work.
Then you have. I think I can picture the guy who did the original Superman, Perry White, but I can't name his name.
Yeah, again,
but whatever. But he did lend the little bit that Lawrence Fishburne was in there. He lent some good.
He's a character.
Yeah, and it was he had his own.
Yep. Him and the assistant. I forget what her name actually is. The dark-haired girl. She looks a little Hispanic. I'm not sure.
I don't know her name.
Yeah. Little cutie running around.
So you have him making the sacrifice, and I've heard a lot of people complaining that he died.
Right.
Folks, if you haven't left yet, Superman dies. I've said it.
Just take that in. You've probably had a good 20 minutes to get off the podcast after everything else we've discussed.
And we've had that Superman's death.
Still here.
But here, he's dead.
Superman's dead. Quite brutally, I might add.
Quite brutally. But the fact that people complain that he shouldn't have died so soon, you know what? This is just going to make his character stronger, and I want to read something. I want to read something that someone sent me that Zack Snyder said. I'm going to have you keep talking for a second while I look this up, but this is perfect.
I mean, the one remiss I've got about his death is that I do have a problem with the introduction of the third act villain, like when Doomsday shows up in the last 20 minutes.
Right.
Now, if Doomsday would have been, if Batman and Wonder Woman and the rest of the city would have been basically in mortal danger, like. He's beating Wonder Woman. He's beating Batman. I've got to do this now.
Right.
I don't think they quite built to the moment where this was his absolute last hope.
Right.
Otherwise, everything would have been lost.
Right.
It would have lended his action with more weight.
Right.
But they didn't get there because the thing just showed up.
Right.
So that's my quibble with it. Am I that upset about it?
No, because it was effective. It was effective.
It still worked.
I got a little teary-eyed. I didn't cry.
I got a little choked up when he told Lois, "This is my world," and he took ownership.
And then the way he said, "You are my universe.
Yes.
You're my world.
You're my world," because he said, "This is." He made a declaration. This is my world, and then he turned to her and got real soft, and he's like, "And you're my world."
And he smiled. The way he smiled, it was a touching moment.
Yes.
So with his death, the people that are complaining, I want to read this from Zack Snyder. I assume this is literally from Zack Snyder. I don't have the source, so I'm gonna just quote based upon what I've heard. I wanted Bruce Wayne to build the Justice League. Snyder continues. I felt with Superman around, it was a different conversation when you create the Justice League, right? It's like me and Superman, we want to make the Justice League. Other heroes would be like, okay, yeah, I'll join. Zack
Snyder.
Yeah.
Okay, dude.
Okay, I will. I just feel that Bruce Wayne having to go out and find these 7 samurai, which I like that he referenced that. That's
absolutely,
cool.
Yeah.
By himself. That's a lot more interesting of a premise. I also felt like without Superman, there's definitely a vulnerability.
Yes.
To the team that they're going to have to figure out somehow. Superman does represent the powerful. He is the Michael Jordan of the heroes. He is going to score. And so that right there, I think, hitting it on the head. You know, that's cool for the other stories, right? But this one, I think having him make that sacrifice is important to his character. Has to happen.
Well, because he... I wrote it down now and I can't read it. So I got to wing it. My handwriting's horrible, folks. And, but he didn't feel accepted and wanted to be. And I probably wrote this down better than I'm going to try to articulate it right now. But him making that sacrifice joins him to our world.
Right.
You know, and now when he comes out of this,
which you know he will.
Which obviously he's going to in the last frame of the film suggests that. When he comes out of this, he's going to be the changed God that we all know him to be. Because he hasn't been able to find his place in the world, doesn't know who he is. He makes the ultimate sacrifice. He knows he's going to his death. He makes that sacrifice. Had a woman he loved, let her go, gave it all up. When he comes back, he's going to be the Superman from the comics.
And that's what
people fear.
That people were pissed that they haven't been seeing yet.
Right.
Is the Boy Scout in blue.
Yeah.
You haven't seen him yet because he hasn't figured it out yet.
You haven't seen the calm, layered, all-knowing
I got this under control
Clark Kent, who shows up on a skyscraper when some girl's going to jump off and is like, don't do it. People love you. This is not what life's about.
Right.
Come with me. And just that calming presence of good in the world.
Yeah.
Like that's who he's going to be, especially coming back to life.
Right.
Oh my God.
And there's so many ways. So many ways you can bring this in. Is they might have to, because obviously Darkseid is coming into play in this next movie. And if you haven't left yet, you're screwed for the next movie too. So if the Justice League without Superman, which is a cool concept, having to figure out how to do this, and then they finally find out that he comes back at the moment where he's actually able to help them defeat it, or however they work it out. There's so many ways to do that. Hopefully, it's not right off the bat.
Oh, and and the arc that Bruce Wayne had. That in the beginning of this movie, he never would have built the Justice League. Right. He'd have been the guy, been like, "You guys are a bunch of whackheads."
Right. And I want to take you
down
because you're in danger.
To it. Now he was driven to it, but he says he thought he totally figured he failed Superman. So not only did I failed up to this point in life, now I made this big deal out of nothing and failed this guy. I've got to do something good.
Right.
I'm going to form the Justice League.
Right. Because it's bigger than me.
Yes.
I couldn't take down that motherfucker.
Right.
No way, no day.
Right.
So, he has an arc.
Yes.
Which is very important.
He's
so they all had
really
an arc.
Good arc.
Wonder Woman doesn't because she's a peripheral character.
Only in it for
she comes in as like this, weird, kind of like elusive white rabbit at the beginning. You know why I stumbled over that one, motherfucker. White rabbit. So you have that going through, and then finally she shows up. So it's not like she doesn't have any story. She just knows that she's been around for a while.
She just showed up to be kick ass.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, in all, man, it's a damn fun movie, and I want people to go see it.
I loved it.
I hope they go see it and they don't go see it because the critics say it sucks. Be your own judge. Don't just take our word for it because you might hate it, but give it a chance.
But give it the honest to God.
Give it a chance, man.
Give it a chance
it's different.
It's a cinema experience. They have really this team has honestly tried to create a cinema only experience.
And I think they
really
succeeded at it.
Totally.
They weren't. It's not your typical thing, and I see why people don't like it. If you're going in wanting to see Christopher Nolan's movies, or somehow have the Joker at mind when you see this movie, or you think of Christopher Reeve and the typical Superman format of structure, you're going to be disappointed.
You've got to accept that it's different. It's totally. There isn't anything. I can't compare it to anything. Because there isn't anything else like it.
And it did.
And how often can you say that?
You cannot say that.
Never.
Even something like Mad Max Fury Road took from Road Warrior.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
it's
so
it's to it. Yeah. It's not like Man of Steel.
Go see it.
It's not like the Dark Knight movies. Just go see it.
Go see it.
Go see it, folks.
It's a damn fun movie. Not without its shortcomings.
You know, if you see it and you think you're angry, send us an email at thejaycraig.com. Tell us how much you liked it or didn't like it, and we'll take the knocks. I'm not afraid to say I loved it.
All right.